All mystery traditions will not allow the initiation of one who does not believe in God. Most do not distinguish which God you must believe in, but that you must believe in one to continue. I strongly agree with this assessment, and if you give me a few minutes of your time, I would like to put together an argument for the belief in God. Understand, please, that I will first be addressing the non-believers, the so-called scientific atheists, because I used to be one. I will also be making a pit stop along the way with the moral arguments for God. After we cover the boring parts, I will get into the deeper philosophies of what God is. I will make timestamps for those who are disinterested in this initially materially focused discussion. Before we get too deep, I would like to clarify that I am not supporting any major religion. I believe that every religion contains something that is true, but they also include many half-truths or plain lies in order to lead you into the trappings that would play you into the hands of a few that would control you. This does not mean that God does not exist. It just means that you cannot blindly follow. I will also be using words like soul or spirit. You can interchange these with the common phrase accepted in the scientific community, consciousness, to mean the same thing. I'm talking about the part of life that animates the flesh. I'm going to first address the scientifically minded, those that would believe in the laws of physics, but scoff at the idea that they would require something to create them. The soul has been proven to be unbound by the laws of Newton. Let that sink in. Again, if the word soul bothers you, substitute it here with the word consciousness. I will, however, not be tailoring my speech to your needs, so I will continue to use the word soul. A brilliant man by the name of Russell Targ was given lots of money by the CIA to see if we could spy on our enemies with our eyes closed. Russell found out that we could. But not only could we go into some places remotely, but we could also access different times remotely as well. The ordered electron cloud within our skulls may be made of material from this realm, but it is not from this realm. They do not play by the same rules. That is to say, your brain is physical, but your soul most definitely is not. Some of you may see where I am going here. Anyone still hung up on the Newtonian physical quote-unquote laws have not spent enough time in the quantum physics side of their campuses. And I'm looking at you, engineers. This is to say that our soul is nonlinear and non-local. There is certainly something going on here that will not be explained away with a wave of the hand and some equations from the 1600s. I would also point to the microscopic scale. Several hundred years ago, you would be burned alive for saying there were invisible living things squirming on everyone's hands that would kill you. Now that's taken as fact. The idea that there are macro-organisms above us in consciousness as well should be no more troubling. We are not the end-all be-all, probably just somewhere towards the middle. Please read the books, The Reality of ESP and or Limitless Mind before you dismiss what I'm saying. Don't just believe me. This information can just as easily be discovered by you as it was by me. Quantum physics supports the existence of the eternal soul. To not believe in the higher soul is to display one of the highest forms of narcissism and hubris. Consciousness cannot be accounted for in simply physical terms. Now, I would like to make a pit stop here to address the hubris of atheism and the moral argument for God. We have all at some point been asked the age-old question, where do we get our rights? An atheist, in his hubris, will answer surely that we give them to one another. This could not be further from the truth. This is an example of moral relativism, the idea that man can supplant the deity and claim that he himself can create right and wrong. This is the highest sin of man, the eating of the forbidden fruit, so to speak. The idea that we can decide what is right and wrong is a drug stronger than any elixir. Reality brings us crashing back down to the world from this high. We cannot give what we ourselves do not have. I cannot fill your glass with water if I do not possess any myself. So too with rights. I have no right to take what does not belong to me. We all know this to be true. That also means that I cannot gift the right to steal to anyone else. I can't get one of my friends to take your property and give it to myself and still remain within either of our rights. This principle remains true no matter how many people I recruit or by whatever means I use to steal your property. If 1 million people come together and agree that we should all have your property, and we write down some words on paper saying that we have the right to take what's yours, and then we all vote on it, and we all agree, and then come to take your things, we are all still wrong. Men cannot now and never have been able to bestow rights to one another. Our rights exist independently of our wants or even our needs. Just because I need food and shelter to survive does not entitle me to the crops in your garden or the roof that you built. This is to say that our rights must, therefore, come from a higher power. Newton did not create gravity. He just described it, mostly accurately. We cannot create laws just because we say so. We can only discover the ways to best follow the rights bestowed to us by God. To believe that man creates right and wrong by himself is the highest form of hubris and enslaves us all to the ego. We are in this world, but none of us are from it. The ancients would say to us that the soul, descending from the celestial limits, where the zodiac and galaxy unite, loses its spherical shape, the shape of all divine nature, and is lengthened into a cone, as a point is lengthened into a line, and then an invisible monad before it divides itself and becomes a duad. That is, unity becomes division, disturbance, and conflict. Then it begins to experience the disorder which reigns in matter, to which it unites itself, becoming, as it were, intoxicated by draughts from the cup of Bacchus. Between Cancer and Leo is a symbol. It is for them the cup of forgetfulness. They assemble, says Plato, in the fields of oblivion to drink there the water of the river Lethe, which causes men to forget everything. This fiction is also found in Virgil. If souls, says Macrobius, if souls carried with them into the bodies they occupy all the knowledge which they had acquired of divine things during the sojourn in the heavens, men would not differ in opinion as to the deity, but some of them forget more and some less of that which they had learned. We smile at the notions of these ancients, but we must learn to look through these material images and allegories to the ideas struggling for utterance, the great speechless thoughts which they envelop, and it is well for us to consider whether we ourselves have yet found out any better way of representing ourselves, the soul's origin, and its advent into this body, so entirely foreign to it, if, indeed, we have ever thought about it at all, or have not ceased to think in despair. The concept that the body is the temple for the soul also exhibits this philosophy. We are our flesh, but we are also distinctly not our flesh alone. To only identify with the flesh is to identify as your car as you drive down the highway. Yet here we are, as just one step on a massive ziggurat of consciousness, at the top of which lies God. But what is God? What am I referring to? And why must we believe? This I do not believe I can answer with words, but I will try. All religious expression is symbolism, since we can only describe what we see, and the true objects of religion are unseen. The earliest instruments of education were symbols, and they and all other religious forms differed and still differ according to external circumstances and imagery, and according to differences of knowledge and mental cultivation. To present a visible symbol to the eye of another is not to inform him in the meaning of what that symbol has to you. Hence the philosopher soon superadded to these symbols explanations addressed to the ear, susceptible of more precision, but less effective, obvious, and impressive than the painted or sculpted forms which he despised. Out of these explanations grew, by degrees, a variety of narratives whose true object and meaning were gradually forgotten, and when these were abandoned and philosophy resorted to definitions and formulas, its language was but a more refined symbolism, grappling with and attempting to picture ideas impossible to be expressed. For the most abstract expression for deity which language can supply is but a sign or symbol for an object unknown, and no more truthful and adequate than the terms Osiris and Vishnu, except as being less sensuous and explicit. To say that he is spirit is but to say that he is not matter. What spirit is, we can only define as the ancients did, by resorting, as if in despair, to some sublimized species of matter, such as light, fire, or ether. No symbol of deity can be appropriate or durable except in a relative or moral sense. We cannot exalt words that only have a sensuous meaning, above sense. To call him a power, or a force, or intelligence, is merely to deceive ourselves into the belief that we use words that have a meaning to us when they have none, or at least no more than the ancient visible symbols had. To call him sovereign, father, grand architect of the universe, extension, time, beginning, middle, and end, Alpha and Omega, whose face is turned on all sides, the source of life and death, is but to present other men with symbols by which we vainly endeavor to communicate to them the same vague ideas which men in all ages have impotently struggled to express. And it may be doubted whether we have succeeded either in communicating or in forming our own minds any more distinct and definite and true and adequate the idea of the deity, with all of our metaphysical conceits and logical subtleties, than the rude ancients did, who endeavored to symbolize and so to express his attributes by the fire, the light, the sun and the stars, the lotus and the beetle. All of them types of what, except by types, more or less sufficient, could not be expressed at all. The primitive man recognized the divine presence under a variety of appearances, without losing his faith in the unity and supremacy of them. The invisible God, manifested on one of his many sides visible, did not cease to be God to him. He recognized him in the evening breeze of Eden, in the whirlwind of Sinai, in the stone of Bethel, and identified him with the fire or thunder or the immovable rock adorned in ancient Arabia. To him, the image of the deity was reflected in all that was preeminent in excellence. He saw Jehovah like Osiris and Bel, in the sun as well as in the stars, which were his children. His eyes, which run through the whole world and watch over the sacred soil of Palestine from the year's commencement to its close. He was the sacred fire of Mount Sinai, of the burning bush, of the Persians, those Puritans of paganism. Naturally, it followed that symbolism soon became more complicated, and all of the powers of heaven were reproduced on earth until a web of fiction and allegory was woven, which the wit of man, with his limited means of explanation, will never unravel. Hebrew theism itself became involved in symbolism and image worship, to which all religions ever tend. We have already seen the symbolism of the tabernacle, the temple, and the ark. The Hebrew establishment tolerated not only the use of emblematic vessels, vestments and cherubs, sacred pillars, but symbolical representations of Jehovah himself, not even confined to poetical or illustrative language. Says Krishna, I am Vishnu, the radiant sun among the stars, among the waters. I am ocean among the mountains, the Himalaya, and among the mountaintops. The Psalms and Isaiah are full of similar attempts to convey to the mind ideas of God by ascribing to him sensual proportions. He rides on the clouds and sits in the wings of the wind. Heaven is his pavilion, and out of his mouth issue lightnings. Men cannot worship a mere abstraction. They require some outward form in which to clothe their conceptions and invest their sympathies. If they do not shape and carve or paint visible images, they have invisible ones, perhaps quite as inadequate and unfaithful within their own minds. The incongruous and monstrous in the Oriental images came from the desire to embody the infinite and to convey by multiplied, because individually inadequate, symbols. A notion of the divine attributes to the understanding. Perhaps we should find that we mentally do the same thing and make within ourselves images quite as incongruous, if judged by our own limited conceptions. If we were able to undertake to analyze and gain a clear idea of the mass of infinite attributes which we assign to the deity, and even of his infinite justice and infinite mercy and infinite love, we may well say, in the language of Maximus, if, in the desire to obtain some faint conception of the universal Father, the nameless lawgiver, men had recourse to words or to names, to silver or gold, to animals or plants, to mountaintops or flowing rivers, every one inscribing the most valued and the most beautiful things with the name of the deity, with the fondness of a lover clinging with rapture to each trivial reminiscence of the beloved. Why should we seek to reduce this universal practice of symbolism, necessary indeed, since the mind often needs excitement of the imagination to rouse it into activity, to just one monotonous standard of formal propriety? Only let the image duly perform its task and bring the divine idea with vividness and truth before the mental eye. If this is to be effected, whether by the arts, the poetry of Homer, the Egyptian hieroglyph, or the Persian element, we need not cavil at external differences or lament these unfamiliar creeds, so long as the great essential is attained, the all-important reason why we must believe in God, even if we do not know them personally. The reason being, so that men are made to remember, to understand, and to love.